Good morning. Welcome. Lovely to see you. Here we are in Luke chapter 8 now. We're getting on, but Luke is a very full gospel. There's so much there, and there may be days when I just think about have on my mind something completely different, and will pop over there and think about those thoughts, whatever they are, when they come. I never expected the morning thought for the days to go on and on as they have done, and I'm so glad that there are some who still enjoy listening to the thoughts the Lord gives me as I wake up in the morning. And here we are looking just at 3 verses at the beginning of chapter 8. It says, "Soon afterwards Jesus went on through cities and villages, proclaiming and bringing the good news of the kingdom of God. The 12 were with him, as well as some women who were cured of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out, and Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward, Chusa, and Susanna, and many others who provided for them out of their resources." It's only 3 little verses there, but I was just thinking, my thought, strange, I get these funny thoughts, they come straight across my mind, and I don't know, I'm sure they come from the Lord. That we've just yesterday looked at the story of an unnamed woman who was sinful, who was a prostitute, who came to Jesus and anointed his feet while he was sitting at the table of Simon the Pharisee. And she has no name. We're not given her name. And then we start this next chapter. Remember, the chapter divisions are artificial. They were put in centuries after the scriptures were written down to help people find their way around in the Bible. So it's artificial, really. So Jesus has just said to a woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." And the next thing we know, we have mention of several women who are named, who were travelling around with Jesus because he had done something to help them in their lives, and he changed their lives for them. And they came. We have Mary Magdalene. I used to go to a church that was called St. Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene, who had been freed from demonic domination. We have Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward, Chusa. Now that's interesting because we had mention of Herod in the previous chapter. Herod, who had arrested John the Baptist and had him in prison. So this knowledge about Jesus had spread to Herod's household. And here was Joanna, the wife of one of the stewards in Herod's entourage. Quite a well-to-do woman. And we also have Susanna. We don't know anything about Susanna, except that her name is Susanna. These were women, some women who had been cured of evil spirits and infirmities. We can believe that all these 3 had problems, physical problems as well as demonic problems, that Jesus had set them free from. And it began the chapter with Jesus going from city to city and village to village, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of God. He was telling everyone that things had changed, that God could be known in a different way, that a new era was beginning, and he spread the news far and wide. And as he travelled, there were the 12 with him. That's 13 of them, plus the women that travel with him. That's quite a lot of mouths to feed and people to put up as they travelled from place to place. And these women provided, and many others, it says, who provided for them out of their resources. And this is important thought, really, that actually our God is a very practical God. When we looked at the Sermon on the Mount, there was the bit about lending to people who haven't got, and helping people who have less than we have, and sharing the resources that we have. And here we see these women and many others. And we have to be careful not to be so heavenly minded that we don't see the need in other people's lives. We need to be able to recognise and realise that we are complex beings. Jesus was the Son of God, but he still needed feeding. He still needed a place to sleep at night as he travelled around. He was not restricted in what he did by lack of resources, but they weren't his own resources. We don't know. We know that these women provided something for him, and we know that God was able supernaturally to provide for him, but we also know that Jesus chose in the wilderness not to turn stones into bread, not to use his supernatural powers to feed himself and anyone who followed him. He lived according to the natural needs of this world while he was here amongst us. And it was just this thought that here in the previous chapter we have a woman who does something for Jesus who is unnamed. And then we have 3 women who are named amongst those who went around with Jesus, who helped him and supported him. And we need to think of what we have materially as to be held lightly. Nothing of what we have materially is ours to keep. We can't take any of it with us when we leave this world. We need to make use of what we've got. We need to be different to how people were at the beginning of this lockdown, where they were hoarding and thinking it's every man for himself. Let's make sure we've got plenty. And there is a story that Jesus told of a man who had so much in the way of crops that he pulled down his barns and built bigger ones, so he'd have space to put it all in rather than giving it away. He stored it up to hoard it, to make himself richer. And there came a night when the Lord required his soul of him, and he had to leave it all behind. And he was laying up treasures on earth, which isn't the best place to store it. So the best way to store for the future is to think like these women did of the needs of the teacher. And maybe you never think about those who teach you and those who have helped you on your way in your faith. Do they have needs? Are they short? Are you contributing to their support? Because if you're not, then you're not being like these women who recognised that every teacher needs support and every teacher needs to be helped financially and materially in order that they can minister and in order that they can spend time studying and seeking God for the message. Then there needs to be provision for them. So think about these women and the way that they went around with Jesus, and they didn't just listen to him. They helped provide for his needs and the needs of his disciples. And we need to use our resources well. What we have, we don't have to hoard. We have to share and to give away, and to have our eyes open to needs around us, rather than closed and self-protecting all the time. It's something to think about anyway. And I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, unless I get any other thought, we'll be looking at the parable of the sower. God bless you. Lovely to see you. See you tomorrow.